Jon Snow's mommy issues are a secret to absolutely no one, but what is still a secret in the books is the identity of Jon Snow's mother, who might be Ashara Dayne. Ashara Dayne is both mysterious and fascinating because we know a weird amount about her while also not knowing nearly enough about her for someone who gets mentioned as often as she does. While I don't actually think that she's Jon Snow's mother, I know that she has something big to do with this plot, and so naturally there are a ton of theories around her, so let's discuss Ashara Dayne and just a handful of those theories, okay? So Ashara Dayne is from House Dayne. They have Starfall in Dorne as their seat. I just did my castle ranking last night, and here it is. It is a beautiful castle. This is where the Daynes live. Now, I know the Daynes are like a fascinating subject because they have lots of weird things about them that might mean things later down the road, but for right now, let's just talk about Ashara. Ashara was a young maiden and noblewoman from House Dayne. She's of the same generation as like Ned Stark, Robert Baratheon, Catelyn, etc., etc. As you can probably tell from this illustration of her, she was known for being absolutely beautiful. She has like the Valyrian purple eyes, she has the long black hair, and while they weren't necessarily Valyrian, House Dayne is very old and is possibly from over there, which is why they kind of look like this, but we don't know for certain. So yeah, theory number whatever, 1 of 1,000. Now, because Ashara was so beautiful, she got a lot of attention, back in the day. She made an appearance with basically every other main character at the Tourney of Harrenhal. The Tourney of Harrenhal was this huge tourney that had a bunch of the huge players from Robert's Rebellion there before the rebellion was incited, but it is also kind of like the inciting incident of the rebellion. Because it is at that tourney that Rhaegar ended up winning the whole tourney, and it is there that he named Lyanna Stark the Queen of Love and Beauty. The winner got to name who the most beautiful woman at the tourney was, and he did not pick his wife. He picked Lyanna, and later kidnapped her, we don't know, whatever, you get it. But the Tourney of Harrenhal is important. Ashara Dayne is in attendance. She garners the attention of a lot of the men there. Barristan Selmy, in some of his chapters, talks about how he was in love with her, even though, he was a member of the Kingsguard, so nothing would ever happen. But had he won the tourney, he would have named her the Queen of Love and Beauty, because he just thought that she was beautiful, etc. But the other person who was really infatuated with her, as far as we can tell, was Ned Stark. Now remember, at this point, Ned Stark is not married or betrothed to Catelyn Stark at all, because Catelyn is betrothed to Ned's older brother, Brandon. Now, Brandon was the rowdy one of the Starks. Ned was known as the quiet wolf because he was just very shy, very, just introverted. And so when it came time to, the celebration portion of the tourney, and it was time to, dance with the other people, it was Brandon who had to go over to Ashara and ask her if she would dance with his brother because he was basically too shy to ask. Now, it's heavily speculated that they might have fallen in love there. At least one of her family members, a young Dane tells Arya when they are traveling together and with the Brotherhood Without Banners at one point, and says that basically her father Ned was in love with his aunt Ashara, and it was a big scandal. Now, we had to take these things with a grain of salt because there are, again, lots of conflicting information dumps about Ashara. Barristan also mentions, when he's thinking back on this tourney, that it was at this tourney that someone dishonored Ashara, and that there was a Stark who was, having his eyes on her all the time. So it's possible that, maybe Ned, but that doesn't really sound like Ned, but that does sound like Brandon, his older brother. So maybe Brandon, stopped caring if his brother was interested and then went and had, I don't know, they had a time together. We don't know. What we do know is that there was probably some sort of interaction, and that is significant for some reason. Now, where it gets a little messier is the aftermath of Robert's Rebellion. So during Robert's Rebellion, Ned Stark, as we know, goes to the Tower of Joy to save Lyanna, and is there that she dies. But before they, get that far, him and his party have to fight off the Kingsguard that are protecting Lyanna Stark, one of them being Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, or Ashara's brother. Now, Arthur Dayne was known as the greatest swordsman of all time, and somehow young Ned Stark and Howland Reed are able to, be the surviving members and kill him somehow. And so this illustration made a little bit of a splash when it was released a few weeks ago, and it is of Ned Stark bringing back Dawn, the sword of House Dayne, to Ashara Dayne. And it is sometime after this that Ashara Dayne, very sadly, commits unaliving herself by jumping off of one of the towers of Starfall. and her body is never recovered. That's your cue, theorists. Go wild! Now, I've joked about secret Targaryens being everywhere. Ashara Dayne and her secret children and her secret identities are another thing that just proliferates the theory space for A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, etc. Every obscure female character that you have ever met or not met or like hear about is probably Ashara Dayne in disguise, let me tell you. Not to mention any child who is about 14 at the start of the series is probably Ashara Dayne's child as well. Didn't you know? They're all her kids and all of the women are her. She's everywhere. She's in the walls, man. So let's go over a few of these, shall we? So the very big one that like was a big fan theory for a long time before, you know, the show like kind of stamped what they say is real, and we could assume it is, but whatever. And that is that Ashara Dayne is the real mother of Jon Snow. Now, the evidence for this comes from the first book of Game of Thrones, where Ned thinks about Ashara a lot. And it is a rumor around Winterfell that she is, you know, the mother, because people kind of know about the tourney of Harrenhal, and they know that, like, something may have gone down, and that Ned might have had a thing for her. So, because Jon was born in the South, people assume that, like, it was her, and that was why, like, it was kind of like shush-hush about it. Because Ned refused to speak about Ashara Dayne at all. When Catelyn, you know, hearing these rumors, tries to bring it up to him to discuss and ask, like, hey, is Jon hers? It is the one time that he, like, fully shuts her down and says, never mention her name again. We are not talking about this. Do not ask me about that. And she goes, okay, cool, chill. Yeah, that's not weird at all. Now, I think the, you know, Ashara being Jon Snow's mother theory kind of falls apart just because it is so obviously placed. Like, this just feels so red herring because it is so blatantly discussed as, like, a maybe, but then Ned won't confirm it in his mind, but then there's, like, weird things when he's thinking about Lyanna, so it just feels like this was George's, like, kind of attempt at being like, oh, well, what if it's this person over here, so think about that. And that could be, like, the end of Ashara Dayne. Like, she is just used as this, like, distraction to kind of throw us off from Lyanna. But still, we hear about her so much and from different characters that, like, in my opinion, that can't be it. There has to be something more to her. It's just, like, she's not fulfilling that piece of the puzzle, but she is fulfilling a different piece of the puzzle. So what could that other piece of the puzzle be? Well, she could be the mother of a different character with, you know, weird origins. One of the possible explanations for Ashara's suicide has been that she was with child. Like, she had, you know, been dishonored at the tourney of Harrenhal and then had a child, and that child died. Or that child might have been stolen, which had led her to, you know, being heartbroken and then, you know, doing the thing. So who could that child be? Well, there are several possibilities. Besides Jon Snow, some people have claimed that Daenerys might actually be Ashara's real daughter, and that the whole, I don't know, Aerys thing is like a smokescreen, if you will. Barristan talks about how Daenerys' eyes remind him of Ashara. Then per this comment, there's the theory that she could be the mother of Mira and Jojen Reed, and that, you know, Howland Reed, being one of the few people that was around Ned during this time, could have possibly married her and then gone up to live in Greywater Watch, hidden from the world, where he had a few kids, and maybe that's why Mira looks kind of like Jon. If she's also Jon's mother. I don't know. It gets convoluted. Don't with me. Then, of course, besides the kids, there's the fact that no body was ever found. So there is a very real possibility that, like, Ashara Dayne is alive somewhere in, like, disguise. Per what that comment was saying about her being, like, Jojen and Mira Reed's mother. Their mother's name, Gianna Reed? I don't know, Gianna Ashara-ish? I'm not discounting, I just don't know. Though considering how mysterious Howland Reed is, I do think that there's a certain irony in it if the two most mysterious characters in the series are secretly married and hiding in a swamp together. I think that actually might make a little bit of sense. Am I and Ashara Dayne as Howland Reed's real wife truther now? Maybe? Then, of course, there's the theory that Ashara Dayne is actually young Griff's mother. Young Griff is the supposed Aegon Targaryen who was smuggled out of King's Landing by Varys and is now being groomed for the throne, and is also being trained in the Faith of the Seven by a mysterious Septa, who is herself a disgraced woman who probably had a child named Septa Lemore. So a lot of people think that Septa Lemore is secretly Ashara Dayne, and that Aegon Targaryen isn't actually Aegon Targaryen. Young Griff is actually just her son and is being, you know, pawned off as a Targaryen. I have barely scratched the surface and I'm already at almost 10 minutes, so yeah. You tell me any more Ashara Dayne theories, any other theories you want me to talk about, whether they deal with her or not, and I could do, you know, a more specific video. Okay, goodbye.